Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome in for another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. If you remember, back in March, we talked to Nancy Rebecca about the blue light celestial beings. She is back, as promised, with the updates for what types of energy upgrades, transmissions, what she's seeing and knowing and receiving is going to be happening through the rest of 2023 and certainly rolling out into 2024, as she's going to tell us in just a minute when we dive in. If you haven't listened to the previous episode that details how Nancy started to come in contact with these blue light beings, the previous messages that she gave her journey really all over the world following guidance that they gave her, you can check that out. It's episode 17. It's called Messages from the Blue Light Celestial Beings with Nancy Rebecca. It was from March 20th. I'll link it in the show notes. Plus, she's got some events coming up for these blue light transmissions to better tune yourself to the energy that we're going to be receiving, I guess is the best way to say it. I'll let her explain coming up in our conversation. So whether you are commuting on your way to wherever it is you're going, or walking the dog, or just tidying up the house, this is going to be a great conversation with lots more information about the blue light beings. She even tells us where she now knows that they are from. So get excited. Here we go with our conversation with Nancy Rebecca. Hey, beautiful souls, and welcome in. I am so excited to have back with us returning guest, Nancy Rebecca. I'm going to remind you a little bit about her, but definitely you should check out episode 17, which is titled Messages from the Blue Light Celestial Beings with Nancy Rebecca. It's from March 20th of 2023. And Nancy is back with more information. She had told us in that episode that there were going to be some big shifts and changes coming November 2023. So she has so graciously agreed to come back and tell us all about what that is and about an event she has coming up. For those of you that haven't met Nancy Rebecca, I'll just tell you a quick bit about her. She is an RN, an intuitive psychic development teacher for more than 25 years now, and she had a moment that we really went into in the last episode about how she had this down on her knees moment that triggered spontaneous out-of-body experience where she became suddenly sighted, and all of her psychic and intuitive abilities came rushing in. But in 2017, her experiences took a turn in a new direction when these blue light celestial star beings started visiting her, and she shared all about her trip to China and all the powerful messages that she got. So definitely revisit that episode if you haven't. And now she's been working on finding balance between the 3D and the 5D world of frequencies, which is challenging at best in circumstance. And Nancy is here to help us navigate through this great time of expanding within the awakening process. Welcome back, Nancy.
Thank you, Joy. Thanks for having me, especially with this event really coming up. It's just coming around the corner, and I'm like a kid in a candy store, a kid waking up on Christmas morning. This time has been building for a long, long time, so I'm super excited about it.
That's great. And we will share all the details in the show notes for the event that you're going to tell us about and the information that we're going to talk about today. So what is new in the blue light, the light beam, I guess is what I want to say.
The light beam. So it's, so I call it the galactic, we are having an enormous galactic celestial surge. And it's never stopped happening over the past several years. But in 2019, when I talked about that, it was a very huge, like this laser beam of light that came to the earth through the pyramids in Xi'an, China. And then in 2021, it came through into a Tehuacan, I never can say that quite right, in Mexico. And then I just kept hearing it was going to be in the Southwest. It took a long time for that to come through. And I was really thinking about this today because in the beginning, this is how the blue star beings came through. I could definitely see them. I'm a clairvoyant, but it doesn't mean that my clairaudient skills, that clear hearing, is at optimal levels. So I'm sure you and many of your listeners, you hear that high pitched shrill. And so when they came in, I could see them, but all I could hear was a high pitch, you know, buzzing in my ear. And
Yeah.
what I know is that's a high frequency communication, and it means in this 3D world, I can't quite tap in there. But the overall writing sound was whales and dolphins. So it
Wow.
was kind of that sonar type sound. Now what's changed is the frequency on the earth has elevated so much, and humanity, we've all elevated, not just me, but you and everyone else in that kind of those intuitive capacities have been enhanced for everyone. Now I can hear them in words. So I can still hear that dolphin kind of whale, huge mermaid influence in the background, but now they're going to come through and I will be able to hear them. So what's exciting about them, I've kind of forgotten your original question.
I just wanted to hear what was going on. I do want to quickly just touch in and ask you with that clairaudience when you're hearing them. For me, I'm always trying to set people's expectations appropriately because I think sometimes we expect it's going to be a booming voice from the
Right.
sky. For me,
Yeah.
it's typically not like that. So, do
Yeah.
you mean more of that internal words or information kind of coming in more of an oral narrative, but not necessarily a big voice from outside of you? Is that correct?
Correct, correct. And it's in my head. And the best way I can describe it, if you've ever watched a video where they're communicating in a different language,
Yeah.
but you've got the subtitles underneath that are coming up, but it's kind of a little more than that when it's clairaudience. It'll be like, you can hear the person speaking in Spanish and then the interpreter is speaking in English, kind
Yeah.
of slightly overlapping it. That's the way it is for me.
So
So
cool.
it's almost like I can hear the background noise of the whales, dolphins, mermaids, but then there's this English overlay that's just slightly delayed. That's what takes talent.
Yeah.
That's what takes skill, and anybody can learn it. And for me, in the beginning, I had to ask that the delay be a little bit slower, a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Now I can almost hear both at the same time and not get too disoriented.
Wow, that's really amazing. It's a little different than I work. I tend to just go away and then the information just streams
Yeah,
through, and I'm not having to be a part of that translation. So I
right.
know that you had talked to us previously and you just mentioned that things are going to start shifting, moving, happening differently in the southwest part of the US. Can you talk more about what's changed, what we're moving towards now?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I was thinking about this. In the beginning, there was a light that came out of the darkness. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like I feel I I don't there's a part of me, it's like, have you changed, Nancy? Is this why you're getting more detail, or has the earth changed? And I'll ask them that. And they are saying, they'll remind me, they'll say, remember, Nancy, in the beginning, we couldn't really come down into the earth's atmosphere. It was too uncomfortable. We had to really slow down our frequency to
Yeah.
come through, like talking through water. So now what they're saying is, because the Earth's frequency has risen. So you think about the 3D, you know, frequency is rising, and so it's kind of matching the 5D frequency. Now they're able to transition from wherever they are in the universe, which they have finally told me where they're from, and then they're able to come down. So back to your question was, what's happened since then?
Yeah.
So for me, in the very first one in 2019, I thought nothing was happening with blue. I just thought on November 19th, 2019, we're going to have this big blue surge and the world's going to change. And that happened. So it's almost like my mind had blinders on. The second one, though, that happened 2 years later, I, in between those 2 years, I would see rain coming down. I don't know if I talked about that last time. I think a little bit, light codes.
Yeah, you touched into it just a little bit, but I
So,
always
and
love
they,
hearing about it.
yeah. And I was just kind of standing looking out the front window at my neighborhood, and I was kind of drawn to these lights, and they were these blue kind of sparkly lights, and they were just kind of showering down. And so then I thought, well, that's interesting. And I remember looking to the left, looking to the right. I went to the back of my house to see, because it wasn't rain. It wasn't like wet hitting the ground. And then it's like a downpour of these blue, to me, it looked like blue sparkles of rain. Now, because I'm a clairvoyant, I have this capacity to be like make my eyes like a microscope. So as a nurse, let's say I see some energy around your liver, I'm going to tune in and I can look inside the liver with detail. So kind of like an MRI machine. And that's all that I've used it for as a registered nurse. So when these star beings came in, it's like, wait, you're not in my wheelhouse. That's not the road that I'm on. But I've grown and changed since then, because now I realize that the blue light affects our physical um, awakening and lightning. All right, so then I tuned in to these frequencies, and it's almost like seeing computer codes of ones and zeros. So it was just coming down with seeing ones and zeros, but then I started seeing something a little different than that. I tuned in more, and it was like hieroglyphics. It was like
Wow.
runes, like little symbols on runes. Like it was things that I definitely have other languages, of ancient languages, and definitely some that I'd never heard of before that maybe anthropologists have heard of. So this really started coming down. And when that started happening, that's when the COVID pandemic hit. So, whether, you know, they're associated with each other, it's way above my pay grade to know
Yeah.
that. But it started me to explore what is that, why is that. And let's say in that 2 years maybe I saw maybe 5 or 6 events of that, so it wasn't like an
Okay.
ongoing thing.
Let me pause you really quick. When you're clairvoyantly witnessing the what looked like droplets but was actually code, when it's hitting the ground, did you notice? I mean, obviously it wasn't pooling because it wasn't water. Did it seem
No,
like it was absorbing in? Did it
it
seem
goes
like it was
right in, it goes
dissipating?
right into the earth.
Okay.
Yeah, it just goes right in and it
So
just
cool.
disappears. Yeah, it's just like this panel of these blue, you know sparkles coming
Yeah,
down.
I can even see it in my mind's eye as you're saying it. Now,
Yeah.
in the days following these 4 or 5 events that you said that you noticed over those 2 years, did you, as a sensitive, kind of feel anything differently? Or was it just kind of like when it rains, like, okay, that happened and moving on?
Um, my, I will say my own personal capacity, because for almost 30 years, I've really spent a lot of time developing my skill. Because as a nurse, I was super
Yeah.
curious about what the heck is happening and how does this work. I will say the depth of my skill level, it's almost like if you look at a tree and it's 2D, and let's see, with my clairvoyance, I could see light radiating off the tree. So a lot of
Hmm.
people can do that. Well, what began to shift was it's almost like I could see through the tree. The tree was still very solid, but it had depth to it, like 3 dimensions.
Okay.
And now it has shifted where I can see the 3 dimensions, but I can see behind it and in front of it and the sides at the same time, as well as below the earth and above.
Okay.
So those kind of skills have changed, not just for me on the face of the planet, but for everyone. So I'm sure you're noticing, Joy. I'm noticing many more people are very curious about intuition. Their
Yeah.
intuition is awakening.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not quite sure what to do with it. And that ability to compromise ourselves is no longer working, and so that skill and ability is coming up. So that's what I noticed for
Yeah.
me. What I noticed in the world was big world events were happening. Every time there was a big blue surge, there was a big world event that was
Okay.
happening. Yeah.
And I feel like what is sometimes challenging from our kind of human perspective is sometimes these big world events feel uncomfortable. They feel like complete upheaval. They feel challenging and traumatic and tragic sometimes.
Emotional and
Yeah.
devastating. Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, I know, sometimes it's a version of an evolution, I guess, right? Of things needing to away with the old or, upheaval to then rebuild. Is that my understanding that right?
Yeah, I try because I'm a nurse. I like to talk about, ascension symptoms. So, and oftentimes I'm kind of amazed people because we use that term so much, I forget that it's not a common language term, but it just means to ascend means to rise. And then the energy that's in your field that is not capable or able to rise with it. So let's say that you had a car accident and you have the PTSD from that car accident and you broke your left hip, and so all the energy and memory of that is stored in that left hip. You don't really know that it's stored there. You're going through a healing process. But as your frequency starts to rise, that trauma can no longer stay stuck in that left hip, and that hip starts to ache and it starts to feel like your hip joint's going to pop out, and you feel a little nauseated because of the pain in the left hip. So you have all that stuff happening, and you're going to the doctor and you're getting x-rays, you're taking pain pills, but really what's happening is your frequency is rising and that needs to move out. So it's kind of like a birthing process. It's not comfortable. Now, a term I use a lot is detoxing. So I've never done this personally, taking a water, what do you call that? All you drink is water, like a water
Or like a
detox for
fast, like,
fasting for
yeah.
2 weeks. And you think, I'm going to do something really healthy for myself, and I'm just going to drink water, and I'm going to just cleanse. I'm going to drink a lot of water, and I'm going to meditate, listen to music, get some good sleep. And you're just sicker than a dog, and you might throw up, but you get these achy headaches because you're not drinking, your coffee. But you're doing something really good for yourself. You are detoxing. So when I'm talking about the blue light coming to Earth, the blue light beings have explained it to me this way. The Earth is going through a detox process. It's a good thing. The blue light frequency is helping us to raise our consciousness. But we have to shed the toxins. And it doesn't take much effort to see how toxic our world is right now. It doesn't take
Yeah.
much.
So I think it's begging the question then with this next wave of frequency adjustments,
Mhm.
do you have any idea what to expect when these things are happening? What have they told you, Nancy? We want to know.
Inquiring minds want to know. Well, I knew
Yes.
you were going to ask me
Uh,
because the way that I work, I'll get information. I'm given the information on a need to know basis. Explaining back then, I'd hear whale sounds, but that doesn't mean that it'd be like word drops here
yeah.
and there, but I kind of have to create the story in between. So I'm getting a little more this time. But in the beginning, they said the blue light is here to dissolve all illusions on the planet, on Earth, dissolve all illusions. So we might have an illusion that I most certainly did. Not everybody did, but I had the illusion that we had a stable government, here in the United States. I had the
Yeah.
illusion that only those people that get voted on are really working for the people. I'm not to go in that kind of political direction, but that's what I thought. So then as the blue lights start coming through, They said all illusion is going to be dissolved, and what has been hidden, the truth that's been hidden from us, is going to be revealed. So this is what they told
Wow.
me starting in 2017. Well, again, doesn't take a psychic to know there's been a lot of illusions that have been
Yeah.
hidden, that have come to the surface. The truth is being revealed. And so that was then, and that's still happening. But now, what they're saying now in 2023, because more of the star beings, the Pleiadians, the Orions, the Sirians, the Lyrans, those are the star beings that I'm witnessing the most. There's many more. But what they're saying now is they are here to assist all of us in humanity. And they're very clear. Not just because I can hear them doesn't mean I'm extra special. I can hear them because I've worked hard at practicing my skill. So if anybody practices, they can hear that. All right.
Okay, I'm going to pause you again just
Okay.
for clarification. So when you're seeing these star beings, as you just mentioned, how is it like they're looking like regular people? Or is it different? How can you just explain a little bit more about that?
Well, they do not look like regular people. In some ways they do. They have eyes and nose and a mouth, but they're very tall. So definitely I would say the Orion Syrians are much taller. They're blue. They're very slender. So the best way to describe them is they look almost exactly like in the movie Avatar.
Okay,
So
so you're
they're
not
very
just kind
tall.
of like seeing them with your physical eyes, kind of walking around at the
No,
mall.
yes, I can.
Okay.
Yes, I can. And it's like you have many of them standing behind you right now. So I can see them, but they're luminescent blue, like I can see through them. So, yeah, it can be a little distracting for me when I'm walking my dog around the block and all of a sudden they start to appear. So, normally I might see one or two, maybe a dozen. But if I start seeing them by the 50s and hundreds, I know something significant. They're working.
Okay. And then where are the blue light beings from?
So, I'll just say quickly, the Pleiadians do look much more human, but they
Okay.
are taller, and they are much more expressive of their creative, compassionate, loving, very sensitive, very clairsentient, So
Okay.
they're really helping us to tap into the feeling to develop that. And then the Lyrans, which are the lions or cat people very associated with Egyptians, they're here. They're not, I don't see them as tall, but they definitely are bulkier.
Okay.
So now getting back to your question what was your question?
Where are the blue light celestial beings from?
So about 2 months ago, I'm meditating with them and I said, or I'm meditating, and and then they're in the room. I can sense their presence. If I open my eyes, I can see them there. And then I said, "Where are you from?" Because it's a big universe. And they said,
Yeah.
"We are from the dog star." And I said, "Okay, you're from the dog star." Having no clue. Have you ever heard the dog star
No, I have
before?
no idea what that is.
Well, I'm a huge Dr. Google fan.
Me too.
So I typed it in, and there is a Wikipedia post about the dog star.
Interesting.
So it's the planet Sirius.
Okay. Oh,
So
fascinating.
then I happen to have a very dear friend. We've been friends for over 20 years, medicine man. He happened to be staying with us for a month.
I remember
He
that. I
he
remember when you
comes
had your friend in
down
town.
and I said, "Have you ever heard of the dog star before?" And his head snapped around and he looked at me and he said, "Well, of course, Nancy. That's where my people are from.
Oh my
Of
gosh, I got
course I
chills.
of course I know that." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean where your people are from?" And he said, "Well, my ancestors are from the stars, and they are from the planet Sirius from the Orion constellation." I did have another opportunity to ask another indigenous elder of our community. And I said, have you ever heard of the dog star? And she said, yes. Like, well, what is it? Well, it's the planet Sirius. It's where my people are from. So if anybody
Wow.
looks into the ancient indigenous cultures,
Yes.
whether it's Egyptian, whether it's from Mexico or China or Tibet, or, they're going to show these constellations. Their pyramids are built according to the Orion constellation, and they have the planet Sirius. So the Orion zone. So I got my book.
I love it.
So it's backwards for me. So I don't know if it's
I can see it.
backwards.
It's called The Orion Zone by Gary A. David, and I can also link it in the show notes.
Yeah. So the Orion zone. So what he realized was in the Hopi
I was just
land.
going to say, I just did in a recent podcast talked all about the Hopi, and I was like, this is so crazy. I didn't want to interrupt you, but okay, I'm putting things together.
So it has the three mesas. So this book is about the three mesas aligning with uh, the planets in the Orion's belt. So you've got the three planets and the Syrian planet. So it's aligned with that. But even more than that, some of their ancient little villages and stuff that are hundreds of years old, thousands of years old. So he marks them and they completely align with the entire constellation and even on those small stars that you can't see. The Hopi could see them and know them. And of course, they're like, well, of course, this is where our ancestors are from.
Wow.
And so my mother gave me this book and I was blown away because the blue star beings told me it would be in the Southwest and the pyramids in the Southwest. And I said, we don't have pyramids in the Southwest. Like, I know what I'm talking about more than they do. And then they said, what is hidden will be revealed.
Wow.
And so I waited and I waited and I waited. I knew it was going to be in the Southwest. I didn't know where. I didn't know where we had pyramids. I thought we were going to have a big discovery of pyramids. And then my mother gives me this book. And I just talked to an anthropologist in Utah and I was telling him about this. And he looks right at me and he goes, and you believe the three mesas are three pyramids, don't you? And I went, yes, I do. And he said, very good, because they are.
Wow.
And so it's like, yeah, Joy, you and I are trying to catch up with that
I
bus that's
know.
going down the road, but
Chasing the bus, girl.
there's a
Oh,
lot of people who are on this already. Then if you look up the blue Kachina, the Hopi are waiting for the return of the blue Kachina. It's
yes, I
prophesized.
literally, like just a couple weeks ago, did a new podcast about the thinning of the veil. I think I was
Yeah.
telling you. And I really did an exploration into how the Hopi people understand communication with the other side and was
Yeah.
talking about the Blue Kachina and all of
Yeah.
that. This is, oh my gosh, I
No
have
wonder
never ceased to be amazed by this. Seriously, that's what I was doing when you were just traveling.
Oh my
I was
gosh. Well,
doing
no
that.
wonder I see the blue beings of light behind you. And so I will stop short of saying that the blue Kachina is the blue star beings. And the reason why I say I will stop short of that is because the elder medicine man, he said, tread lightly here, Nancy, because you are not Hopi.
Yeah.
You are not an indigenous person. You are not a native person. You don't get to speak their ancient stories and their oral traditions and their stories. You don't get to name that. So even when we're going to do this event, I am told the blue surges will come through the three different mesas and three different times in November, but we're not allowed to travel astrally or energetically or anything. It's like we have to remain very respectful. So I've really talked a lot. I've really thought about this a lot. I've meditated on this a lot. But the thing about the three mesas on Hopi land, I've been to Egypt, to Giza. I've seen those pyramids. You can walk from one to the other in a little day tour. It's the same in China, although they've got theirs behind armed guards. And then the ones in Mexico. You can do a day trip, visit the three pyramids, and you can visit the museum and still have time for lunch. The three mesas in on Hopi Land, they're 50 miles apart from each other.
Yeah.
This is huge. So anyway, I'm super excited. So to get back to what's going to happen this time, the first time it was a light that came through, this radiant light. It's almost like the whole earth turned blue. The second time the radiant light came through, like a laser, a column of light, it was like the earth became liquefied, and it was like ringlets of waves going out to wherever in the outer atmosphere, and then it would come back in. And these waves went on for about 6 months.
Wow.
And now this time, what they're showing me is what has been hidden will be revealed. The earth has to be detoxed. This first beam of light's going to come through, and it would be kind of like a pile driver. You know what I mean by that? Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna hit some hard granite, whatever. It's gonna keep hitting it, but it's gonna, the way they're showing me, it's gonna come through. It's gonna shatter. It's like black glass. It's just gonna shatter, and that black is hatred, violence, warring, power, abuse,
Yeah.
money abuse, all of that, abuse of other cultures, all that has saturated the earth, and it has become like cement. It's hardened, it's dried. So it's going to break that up. And then the
Wow.
second one that comes through will break it up even more and start to clear it. By the third one, they said it'll be more powdery, much more easily dissolved.
Wow.
So that's why they're saying what we're having these wars right now, because they're reflecting what's stuck in the earth, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
And again, they've got this knowledge that is beyond the beyond, and they put it in bite-sized pieces for me.
Yeah.
But I know it's much more complex than that.
I think it's always more complex. It is one of the messages that the Violet Flame has been sharing often, is that sometimes even through listening to the channeling, yes, we're hearing it on an auditory level, but vibrationally, our system is attuning, rising, moving
Yeah.
to those frequencies, even if our human ears and human brain doesn't consciously understand what's happening. So I think there are things that are, going on energetically always behind the scenes. So are these three events, three transmissions, three separate dates that are spread apart
Yeah.
throughout November? Okay.
Yeah. There'll be three different dates that they will be happening. And I know that the information, you're going to put that, but I actually looked it up because I'm trying to remember. So there's going to be the dates around the 3rd, 4th, 5th of November, then the 17th, 18th, 19th of November, and then the 24th, 25th, 26th of November.
Wow.
But we're going to do a pre-event, the event, and then a post Q&A of the event. So that's going to be where some people may tune in and want to tap into. I call them those who want to get every single drop of the experience of this blue light, then they will participate. But you have others who can just simply participate in the three, events. So, but this is what the blue being exactly what you said, like I'm a nurse. Your liver has a different frequency than your bones. Your brain
Yeah.
has a different frequency than your heart, So I can hear the frequencies. I can feel the frequencies in the body. Could I do it 25 years ago? No,
Yeah.
I've just practiced at this. But then they went on to say, but emotionally, you're impacted by the emotions of anger, or jealousy, or the emotions of sadness or joy, or happiness or elation. you can walk into a room and be happy, and you can have somebody in a grumpy mood that can impact everybody in the room. So they try to help put it in perspective of you can feel that, but you don't even know that somebody in the room's angry, but you can feel somebody's angry. But this with the blue light, it's such a high, fine frequency, you can't feel it, but your whole entire human body and chakra system are being impacted by this blue light. So
Wow.
everyone is going to be touched by it, whether they're conscious of it or not.
That's really fascinating. So are you aware of, I guess I should say, any kind of physical symptoms either within ourself or of the earth itself during these three events that you were mentioning?
So headaches are big ones because I always, will say, I can't wrap my mind around that. So it's human nature, and especially in our Western culture, to try to make sense of things.
Yeah.
I have to admit, that's my default.
Yeah.
You know,
Me too.
I'm this Aquarian, Virgo, Capricorn person. I mean, that you can't get much more mental than that. So I've always had to train myself to override that. However, not avoid it, because our human minds are brilliant. So yes, a lot of headaches are coming up because we're trying to clamp down rather than allow the expansion to happen. It's like, I'll allow the expansion to happen as soon as you tell me what I'm going to be like
Right.
afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing is neuropathy, anything to do with the nervous system, anything to do with the eyes, because, yep, our intuition's opening up, clairvoyant, our psychic
Interesting.
abilities opening up. People are going to be maybe definitely seeing more on the side, but it's almost like your eyes are going to move in and out. I find myself rubbing my eyes and looking and rubbing my eyes and looking. It's just like I can't get my eyes to get on the same page. So
I've been
those
having that
types,
too. I've been mentioning it a lot on my lives and stuff.
yeah.
I think I need glasses, guys. I don't know what's going on, but it's so fascinating that you say that.
Well, and time and space is the biggest freaky thing of all. So it's like, all right, let me just wash these last few dishes. I'm going to take the dog out for a quick pee, put the dog in the crate, and then I'll hop in the car. I've got time to stop for a Starbucks before I get to work. And then you're washing the dishes, doing it. And then the next thing you know, you still have an hour to go. It's like,
Wow.
wait a minute. I thought I had 15 minutes. So it's like, you could take this to the bank, Joy. This is already happening so much, this weird time warpish sort of thing. And then other weird things that are happening, it's like your car keys will be there. And you're like, okay, I've got the dog out, da, 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 ready to jump in the car, swing by Starbucks. What just happened to my keys? They were just right there next to the purse. Now, I know we all do that. That's normal stuff. But it's going to start happening more often that you've like, okay, this is beyond logic.
Yeah.
And like my mother tells the story about how, okay, I'm going to make the bed. I'm going to go finish loading the dishwasher, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to make the bed. So she's got planned out her chores for the day. She comes back and the bed's made.
Oh, wow.
So those kinds of things. And this happened to me. I just got back from Ireland. Whew. Ireland, I don't even know what dimension it's in. We talk about the 5D. I think it's like in the 35th dimension in
Wow.
some areas. That happened so much. It was crazy making. But what's happening there? So what's happening is you're shifting into a higher frequency, then you'll struggle to see the 3D world.
Okay.
And your keys are right there in the 3D world. But then, and remember when you're busy, you lose your grounding. Well, then you get
Yeah.
grounded again. You've clicked back into the 3D world. Suddenly you can see your keys that are there. But you go a little freaky because you think they really disappeared, but they didn't. You did. Just slightly.
Okay. So let me ask you this. For anyone who's experiencing these symptoms of this transition, do you have any suggestions for self energy management for to ease the ease the transition, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, let's just say the simplest form is to remain in a state of curiosity. So that's the simplest form. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, that's curious. Wow, that's kind of cool. Do I have a friend I can call right now? And start creating a language around it. Because the blue beings of light tell me all the time we are creating a language of the future. So we don't have languages to describe this. So you can go through all of that, be curious, uh, get some books on it. There's lots of books written about, YouTube videos. But my big thing, which to me is non negotiable, is to get your energy running because you want to stay well grounded. You want to imagine you're grounding. And I have free meditations. If you go to intuitivemind.org, and I think it's under shopping and free, you click there, you've got grounding meditations. Right now, if I were to give the best recommendation of all, every single day, at least 10 minutes a day. And what would make me super happy is 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes twice a day, especially during this blue light movement. And I have 2 free blue light meditations too, but I'd say do it once or twice a day, especially over these next 6 months.
Okay.
Um, and I know people are going to be listening to this podcast 2 years from now. Meditate twice a day because these changes are not stopping in
Yeah.
January.
Well, yeah, what have been like, I feel like I've said it 1,000 times in the last 2 weeks. It's these energetic systems that we have, it's more of an unfolding than a light switch. I think our
Yeah.
human nature is to expect, like, oh, turn on my third eye, turn on my, whatever. And it's not a light switch. It's more of an unfolding. It's more of a relationship than, a
Yeah.
one and done thing. So I'm not surprised that this is extending over,
Yeah.
the period of time. So I want to continue to hear about this, but I want you to touch into those events that you're holding personally, that you're offering to everyone around these events. Can you talk a little bit more about what you're going to be doing and the space you're going to be holding?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. So, excuse me. When I first began, again, when you're psychic, you're intuitive, like I'm a nurse and all I could see was illness. I am going to get to the point here, but all I could see was illness. And I remember one day I asked my higher wise self, I'd like to just have a conversation with my friend over a cup of coffee without saying, oh, her lungs are full, blah, 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 blah. And Spirit said, well, then change the channel.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And they were like, I'm like, what if they said, well, do you want to see people's spirit guides? Yeah, change the channel. So you go change the channel to the spirit guide channel. And then you start kind of sensing spirit guides around
Yeah.
or anyway. So with the blue beings of light, um, so I'm tuning into this event. So I started doing weekly talks I have a blue light, what's called a private member blue light movement page, which everybody can join. It's on Facebook. I only require that you play well with others. That's it. Play nice.
I call it no jerks in the sandbox.
Exactly. And we talk about everything blue, but I've been giving talks, so I would need to prepare for that talk. So leading up. So now what's happening in November, I've already been planning for this probably the last 2 years. I can't rush into it. Just like you said, I can't flip the
Yeah.
switch on. I had to wait for them to give me I had to wait for them to know when I was ready for the next level of information to interpret and
Wow.
share to others. So the first May set, so what on October 28th kicks off everything. That's on Saturday, October 28th, kicks off everything. I'm going to do a reading for the group and we're all going to meditate together as I look at the energy field of the group to prepare them to receive the blue light. We're all receiving it, but there can be bumps and lumps along the
Yeah.
way. Then on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, so on the 4th of November, I'm calling it the Blue Earth Surge. So I'm I'm going to guide people, prep them on the third to get prepped for how we're going to do this. Then we're going to create a round sacred house and we're all going to enter into it through meditation. I'm going to guide them. And then I tell everybody exactly what I'm seeing. It's like, all right, the blue light has just entered our atmosphere. Okay, the blue light has now just hit our earth lodge. Okay, the blue light's starting to come through you. Keep breathing, let it pass all the way through. The blue earth's now going into the earth, blue light to the earth. And then I'll just guide what I'm noticing is happening. And then we'll do a follow-up kind of Q&A. People get to share their experience on the 5th. The same will repeat on the second mesa. But this one, the blue beings of light gave me these terms as the blue water surge. So it's not, but water is highly intelligent. I mean, highly intelligent. And same with the blue light. So now we're going to work with the whales and the dolphins and the mer people in this, and we'll do another guided meditation. Some people won't be able to go under the water in their guided meditation. Some will, but it will merge with the blue light. We're going to have an experience that way as well. We do the pre and then the post sharing. The third and final one for here in the United States is going to be that Thanksgiving holiday weekend. But it's just like an hour to 2 hours each day. It's not all day long. Is the blue cosmic surge. And that one, I would say, I think is going to be the trippiest one of them all, because it's going to be incorporating the galactic core and the great attractor. Have you ever heard of those two things?
I have, but I would love it if you would expand a little.
So the galactic core is like this black hole. And I call it, well, my friend who's the medicine man elder, I laughed because I'm like, I cannot even believe you're describing this. And this is exactly what the blue light beings told me. But he says it's the space of nothingness that contains everything.
Yeah.
And so when you go into that, as a group, we're going to go into that, it's a total still point. You cannot wrap your mind around a still point. You can't, it's just, you go totally still. And when the blue light beings took me into the galactic core, they had me set my timer, because they said I would stay in that suspended state forever. Like someone would have to bring me back. So they had me set my alarm for only 10 minutes. So we're going into that state. Mm-hmm. The great attractor pulls planets. So even our Earth is being pulled. You can look it up on NASA. I've done my Dr. Google search. It pulls the planets. So time and space bends. So as we expand in light, time lengthens. So they talk about when the astronauts are in outer space on the spaceship, time is like 2 minutes either slower or faster up there than it is here on Earth. So they're always having to adjust the clocks. So it is going to kind of be a little wild, trippy, but in a non-scary way. Yeah. It's going to be like in this way of like, whoa, that's awesome. That's awesome. You know,
that's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited because the first two, I experienced the still point. It's like tick, 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 and then the clock stops. Pure silence. The birds stop singing, everything like that stops. It's like only 2 or 3 seconds it has been, and then click, click. It's like everything starts again. But a whole reset has happened inside of you. Like you are not the same person you were 2 seconds ago. I love to think about how all these things work. And I know you do too, Joy.
I do.
But these concepts are way out of my pay range.
I agree. I mean, I love thinking about them, but also it kind of hurts my brain because I'm like, I can't wrap my brain around it. And I know, like you were saying earlier, it's just some things we can't logically define or understand. We don't have the language connected with the understanding and meanings. This is so exciting. And I'm sure you have an info page for people to kind of read all about the events, right?
Yeah, so definitely if you go to my website at intuitivemind.org, I've got the page right there about Are You Ready to Soar?
Okay. We'll link it in the show notes wherever you're
Yeah, and
listening or
so
watching
once you
this.
click on that, there's a ton of information that you can read about. I'd say make a cup of something and just really enjoy, get nice and cozy and
Yeah.
read through it again. But feel it, as you're reading it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely at the top of my page that I didn't say that they wanted me to say today.
Please, we have plenty of time. You know me,
Okay.
I always have 1,000 questions. So,
So what they said was hidden, what would be revealed, but they said because now they can come to the earth by the hundreds, maybe by the thousands. They are here to assist us, humanity, to tap into higher realms of possibility. So basically, they're helping us to override our limited thought patterns. Oh, I can't do that. I didn't graduate high school. I can't do that. I didn't do this. Well, I'm not athletic, so I can't join a softball team. It's like they're saying they're here to help us reach for that higher bar that already exists.
yeah.
And then they said they're helping us to do higher problem solving capacity. And then they said no matter what your status is in life, no matter what your education level, your wealth, your support system, it doesn't matter. Every single person on the face of the planet will have the capacity to move into higher problem solving. So let's just talk about, the war that's happening, right now that's all over the news. It's like they may have limiting ways of problem solving that situation, but the blue light is going to help. Oh, I didn't think about that before. And then we're going to see it in the sciences and medicine, in our, saving the planet, ecology, and the airs and the waters. Like we think of it from that perspective of, oh my God, the world's going to end and we've screwed it up big time. And what they're
Yeah.
saying is, no, you haven't. You just haven't tapped into
The
all that's
solutions.
possible to
Yeah.
solve these problems. And that is our evolutionary process that's happening. It's exciting.
What's so fascinating, even as you're saying it, like throughout this talk, there's been so many things that I like always want to interject. But even when I read for someone, when I'm working and I can see, you already know this, but I don't believe anyone can predict the future because we have free will and it
Right.
depends on which avenue, which stream we choose off our river, so to speak. And when I'm reading for someone, I can often see a couple offshoot branches from their tree that they're moving towards, but then I can usually see several, 6 or 7 other avenues
Exactly.
of possibility that they may not
Yeah.
have even considered yet. So it's so
Right.
fascinating to hear you describing this because I'm like, this is what happens.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, and
I
what
just
they're
love all
saying
this.
it's a frequency thing.
Yeah.
So if they're, like you said, you're doing that reading and they're just like, especially societal stuff,
Right.
about relationship and, like
Right.
if you're stuck there, it's in South Africa where I trained with the Sangomas, the Zulu people there. It's like if you're looking down at your feet, all you're going to see is your feet. And
Yeah.
it's like, but they'll say, lift your chin and look at the stars and feel how you feel inside. It dramatically changes. So I would ask anybody who's listening, tuning in, do it for yourself. Look down at your feet, think about a problem, and then look up. So looking up is those other frequency solutions. Yeah.
So is this going to be I'm not going to word this correctly, but kind of a non-optional leveling up for everyone where just additional possibilities will start opening up, whether someone is intending to be available to see that or not? Does that make sense when I'm asking it?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And this is where, we might kind of bump up against some societal beliefs. and
Yeah.
the society, the us and them. You
Got it.
know, uh, there are some who will remain in the third dimensional world, and there are some who will go in the fifth dimensional world. But what they're showing me is everyone is going to bump it up a level.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to be reciting, Plato or, the great philosophers and things like that. But their level of consciousness is going to rise, and it may be within their realm of consciousness. Because here where I live, you know, we are having a violence problem, where I hear guns going off a few times a week, and
Wow.
um, drive-by shootings and that kind of stuff. And so I think about this a lot. It's like, are they going to have a leveling up of consciousness?
Yeah,
And
I think this is exactly what I'm asking.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the blue light being said, well, of course, why wouldn't they be? And I'm
But do
like,
people have the
yeah,
choice whether they're going to accept that leveling up and the behavior will shift accordingly, or is it just kind of when like evolution where things just shift and change and climate changes and then you're just that's what it is now? Is it more like that?
it's not a choice.
Okay.
So, but let me explain it to you this way. It's different. We have a lot of choice in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So now I'm in Ireland. It's crazy vibration. I can't sleep. I'm wide awake. My dream when I do fall asleep are crazy. All right. So you enter into a stone circle. So you're outside the stone circle. You can feel the frequency. You go in, it's amplified. And so if you're sitting there, no matter what status in life, I'm looking at my note, no matter
Yeah.
what status in life you're in, anybody can go into that stone circle, and the stone, the frequency of the stone, the frequency of the circle, the frequency of the vortex is going to uplift everybody who enters into it. Now, let's take it to another level. So, Joy, you've been developing yourself all your life. You're probably grooving out in the center of that circle. You're just like, you're just like enjoying it. You're like loving it, like bring it on, and a half hour later, I'm like, Joy, you got to get out of the center of the circle. Your body's got to have time. Just one more minute. You might be
Yeah.
like that, or you could be someone who goes in and it's like, whoa, this is too intense. And then you'll step back out again.
Okay.
So some people everybody's going to be impacted by the frequency. Everybody is. Just some are going to be able to take that in a little easier than others. But
Interesting.
um, what the blue light beings and spirit is quick to remind is you could be sitting there just rocking out to that incredible vibration. And then you can have someone who's struggled all their life. They might have been in prison, they might have been doing drugs, and they walk in and flash, totally awaken, and they have more ability than you who's been doing it for 20 plus years. So that's the freaky thing that's going to happen as well. We're seeing young kids right now telling us, right?
Yeah, oh, very much so. Yeah, it's all so fascinating. And it's, like you said, kind of at the top, it's our mind wants to wrap around it and make patterns out of it and make understanding out of it. And it's just not going to work exactly like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So these events are happening in November, the dates that you mentioned, and then sort of energetically integrating over the next 6 months or so. What can we expect in that 6 month period? Do you anticipate? Obviously, you can't give us all the answers because, need to know basis, but what are we looking at here?
Well, I'm super excited
I
about,
am too.
yeah, these next 6 months and even the next year. We have Aquarius who's moving, into Pluto, and they're becoming great bedfellows. And that's that expansiveness. So we definitely have the astrology that's just functioning perfectly for these surges. It's like, well, of course,
It's pretty amazing.
it's pretty amazing.
And even as you're talking, like these are the things I haven't said, but I also got the message when I was deep diving into the all of the Hopi tradition and wisdom. I shared very little of it because I got the message of these are sacred traditions. You are
Right.
allowed to understand, but
Yeah.
limit what you share. This does not belong to you.
Yeah. You can't
Um,
speak for them. Right.
Exactly. And even as you're talking about the dates, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was guided to do the channeling event on the 29th. I had no idea why of October. And I'm like, this is crazy, Nancy. So excited to hear
Yeah.
what is coming.
Yeah. So going back to the stone circle.
Yeah.
So on the trip, the woman, it's Maria's Irish Sacred Tours. So you can look it up, or O'Farrell Tours, which is she's changing the name to. So she put into the tour. Um, so my parents were on the trip with me and my mother. So it's my mother and I's ancestors stone circle. So we
Wow.
came from this county Limerick, which is where we're from. So the stone circle, and it turns out it's the largest stone circle in all of Ireland. Now it's not my family's, but it would have been for that county. The people would gather and do ceremony there. So I had been there, but I had surprised my mom that when we pulled up, and I surprised her. I said, "This stone circle is from your ancestors." All right, so I go in the center, and I felt compelled to lay on the ground, and I felt like a magnet was pulling me to the underworld or something. But I'm laying kind of out, and all of a sudden I see the blue beings of light. They're gathering around, and I thought, "Oh, that's cool," you know. And then all of a sudden I hear, and so I start thinking about November and everything, and I'm like, yeah, kind of tapping in. And they said, and then when that's done, the real work begins.
This is what I was wondering. Because I'm like, wait a minute, I know it's not a light switch. So what's next?
But I was like, I mean, isn't that human nature to leap
Yeah.
to the worst case scenario?
I think
Like,
it is. I think I always know it's sometimes there are things that can feel temporarily discomfort, uncomfortable in
right.
growth.
Or that
But
it's
for,
hard, or it's going to be hard because we've
yeah,
been doing hard. Like, we know how to do hard. On the earth,
yeah.
we know how to survive.
And
But then,
most of us are more creature of habit than creature of change, right? So,
right. So all they showed me was like a phoenix coming out of the ashes. So it
okay.
was like the crumble when they break apart, all that old stuff. And it's just like this rising of light. And then it's just like, then we're just going to start creating and molding, how we move forward in our life as a human culture and unity consciousness. And so I think we can be really excited about that.
Well, I think it's why what you said is so wise. And I feel like you and I and several others are constantly blowing this horn of like, get into your meditation practice because
Yeah,
truly we each have that seed of wisdom within. We have a soul that has
yeah,
wisdom that our human mind doesn't understand all the time, all the way. And that is how we will start receiving that inspiration,
exactly.
that nudging, pulling us forward, check here, look here. And
Yeah,
sometimes it gets, pulsates a little louder as we're
yeah,
needing to move towards it more. So for
yeah,
me, I feel like part of what you're saying is, through having a meditative practice of quieting and going within, each person will be, guided, inspired, nurtured through the transition, perhaps each in their slightly own
right.
way.
Yeah, yeah. That's very true. And, when I was guided to kind of put this guidance, these events, out to the public, because you have to remember, this is a real coming out for me. I mean, it's a coming out for you. I mean, I've kept it in a
Yeah.
very small group that it's like, oh yeah, I talked to
Yeah.
star beings. Oh yeah, you have star beings in your ancestral lineage. Yes, our ancestors came. Like, this is a big deal for a nurse who has two parents who are doctors and all of that stuff. But what's happening is what Spirit always tells me is every single there's billions of people on the planet, and each one has a piece of the puzzle. And your piece is exactly like my piece. It just has a different shape, and the homeless person has a piece, and the president has a piece, like everybody. So as we start to meditate, and meditation, the type of meditation I teach, I call it intuitive meditation, but we're actually flowing energy through the body. We're not trying to
Yeah.
quiet the mind. We're giving the mind a job. So people get kind of blown away. They're just like, wow, I can do this. So it's
Yeah.
very doable. But when I ask the blue light beings, like, why does it matter if we're all going to be being showered with this blue light, or we're standing on the earth that's turning blue? Why does it matter that we do anything? And they said, well, if you jump in to a deep lake and you didn't know how to swim, you're going to sputter and cough and choke your way to the edge until your feet are on the ground. And you're probably going to think twice before you jump back in to learn how to swim again. But if you have a swimming coach, a swimming teacher, it's like, let's start at the shallow end. Let's just go under the water and then up. Like if you have a coach, then the chances of being successful and getting the most out of your experiences a lot easier. And so that's why they said provide these opportunities for
Yeah.
those who would like to have a coach to move through them. Anyway,
Makes
we're
so
just
much
going to have a lot of
sense.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be a lot of fun.
You'll have an experience. And
Yeah.
if someone is coming to this podcast after these events, like say it's already towards the end of November, the events have passed, even though we're going to get this out right before the events, what guidance would you give, or what would be the best, I don't know, the best thing for someone to do that's coming after these events have already passed?
So we will have we are recording all the events. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do with them. However, I would say start meditating with the blue light. So basically you're grounding blue, you're bringing blue through your legs and your arms and your skin and your head. You're bringing blue cosmic, through, you're tapping into blue crystals in the earth. So it's like, that's going to help you to integrate what's already in place
Yeah.
is the blue light. But all the normal things work really well. Getting a good night's sleep, getting out and walking, sitting
Yeah.
in nature, staying hydrated, good food, good company, good laughter. All of those things work really well to help integrate
This is
anything.
maybe a strange question. I know in the past, when we hold on to emotions and try to shove them down in our body, it causes all kinds of
Right.
long-term problems, as we know. Is this going to be part of this revolution, evolution, that we're no longer going to be able to do that, or it's going to be much more uncomfortable to do that? So is that part of the guidance, is making sure we're working through emotions that rise up, discerning our emotions from others' emotions, that kind of thing? You touched on it a little bit earlier.
Well, so let me just share a little story about Ireland. And so with Maria, as she was talking to the group, because I had noticed when I plugged in my cell phone, like you plug it in, I don't know, the battery can die in 12 hours or something. But you definitely plug it in once a day. And what I noticed was sometimes I could go 3 days and my battery wasn't dying. So I asked Maria about it. So this is going to answer your question. And she goes, oh, our magnetics is different than other places in the world. We don't have a magnetic um, field. We have non-magnetics. So she said, what that means is we can't hang on to stuff.
Wow.
So magnetics pull us down into our trauma, our drama. Magnetics pull us down into our old emotions. Magnetics kind of can pull us and be stuck, or kind of cause those memories and energies to be stuck. So what she said was, here we're so much in the now. We're so much in the present moment, and they are. Like, I remember we were going to another county. We we're going to go see a fairy circle where the fairies live, and their circles are huge. And so I asked this man, we're going to go to this other county and see this fairy circle. Can you tell me anything about it? And he said, well, no, that's not my business. I'm like, what do you mean it's not your business? That's another county. It's that county's business. I live in this county. I tend to the business in my county. So that's kind of how it's going to be for us. We're going to stay in our own backyard more. We're going to want to stay in our own backyard more. Distractions, disorientations, that need to be over caring, over concern for others. all of that pull that's going to change, we are going to be able to let go of things more. However, what Maria was quick to say, though, is we are so in the moment, we're so in the now that sometimes we've had some traumatic things happen in our country that we didn't process. And then we end up having to repeat it again.
Right.
And so she does believe that process time is important, hanging on, not so much. So those things will change. But it's like when I'm meditating with the blue light and you're telling me about a problem, it's like I can see that the solution is laying right next to the problem, or I can see, oh, this isn't really a problem. This will be resolved by tomorrow. That's what's going to be happening for us. Like we won't be so easily hooked
Yeah.
by, yeah, our own stuff. I call it contemplating our navel. That's just not going to be as great a pastime as it has been for us in the
Wow.
past. Yeah.
Well, it sounds incredible. I hope you will return and join us in 6 months so we could talk about what has happened and what's to come at that point, because I know
Yeah.
that this is part of your work as a healer. You're continuing this communication, this relationship, and continuing to get need to know basis information,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
exciting. Do you have any last thoughts or guidance that you want to leave us with about the blue light, or things that they've instructed or given? You've given us quite a bit already.
Well, when I did ask them, where are you from the dog star, who are you? Why are you even here? And they basically said their sound, my interpretation. I'm just going to put it in this kind of literal sense. We
Yeah.
answer to the same God you do. That was the very first thing they said. Or we answer to the same creator, or we answer to the same goddess. But it's that
Yeah.
the highest wisdom that we align with. So they were very quick to say that to me. And they said, and just like God, the God of your heart, the divine, asked you to help humanity during this great time of change, we too have been asked by Source to help humanity during this great time of change. We can't interfere, we can't do it for you, but we can stand by, we can support, we can encourage as you kind of go through that evolutionary, expansive awakening of consciousness phase, and that they'll celebrate us. So I think that's where I kind of like to just to assure everyone, I could feel that truth
Yeah.
for me.
I
I think,
deeply can too. I almost want to
yeah,
cry even as you're saying it. It's what the violet flame tells me too. Same source. They always say same. We're all of the same source.
yeah,
So there's a built-in trust and ease there.
yeah. Well, and just that other thing is, I had someone say, what you're doing is fringe. It's on the edge. It's not going to appeal to a lot of people. So, and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally get that. I mean, look
Yeah.
how long it's taken me to kind of get on board. But I said to the blue beings of light, you're probably not going to get the people very interested in what you're doing right now. It's kind of fringe, it's on the edge. And they came back and said to me, what's wrong with fringe? What's wrong with edge? Do you really want to stay focused on what a mess the world is right now? Do you really want to base that as your reality? And it
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah, I want fringe. I'm going for
Yeah.
fringe.
For sure. And I mean, even just historically, the things that there's so many things even within our lifetimes that were once fringe that are now just an acceptable part of it, just
Exactly.
is. So
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, join Nancy Rebecca for this leading edge, fringe, but beautiful, uplifting experience. And
yeah.
will you just rattle off your um, YouTube and your website for us? And of course, I'll link it in the show notes, but I just want people to hear it.
Yeah. So I definitely have a YouTube channel, and it's called Intuitive Mind with Nancy Rebecca. So even if you just put in YouTube Nancy Rebecca, my channel will pop up. I talk a lot about the human energy field and how we are impacted, but a lot of things, and then blue light as well. Um, the Facebook page. So I have the Blue Light. It's called Blue Light Movement. We have about 2,000 people in that group. It's not like a highly engaging group, I'm hoping, that will change, but we're still deeply excited about it. So I can feel that. And then what else did you ask me?
Your website is intuitivemind.org. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
intuitivemind.org. And I do have a calendar there. I do have 3 1-year programs. So it's Psychic Mastery 1, Psychic Mastery 2, Psychic Mastery 3. I don't need to explain, but I I'm like, yeah, a weekend workshop's great, but if you really want to make, some life changes and live life in a intuitive way on a regular basis, yep, got those programs. You can read all about those there too. So
Well, we would definitely, wherever you're watching or listening to this, all of that will be in the show notes for you. So don't feel panicked if you're jogging or driving or walking your dog to remember. But I am so grateful for you, Nancy, being an incredible resource and sharing your wisdom and light. I know it can feel vulnerable even for
it feels
us.
very vulnerable, and
Yeah, to
you
share
really
these
make it
things.
your excitement. It's like, okay, she gets it. Like she gets there's a reason to be excited.
Yeah.
And I don't always get to share in that,
Ah.
So I so appreciate who you are.
Oh, well, thank you. You're the best. Well, everyone, I am planning to be there for at least some of Nancy's events. So you will see me there if you are there. And Nancy will definitely be there. And
Yeah.
I am so excited to just experience whatever's next for all of us. It's definitely going to be positive. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining
you're
us
so
and shining
welcome.
your light.
Thank you so much.
So, what did you think of this conversation giving even more detail about not only where the blue light beings are from, but detailing what we can expect next, the transmission of energies inside of North America that's going to be happening? What do you think? If you are listening to this in time to attend Nancy's events or get the replays of those, I highly recommend it. Like I said in the episode, I'm going to be attending just to see what I can feel and know. And as you guys know, I'm a channel as well and have an event coming up very soon too. So if you are watching or listening to this after the energetic events, the dates that she mentioned in the episode, did you feel anything? Did any world events happen on those days? And the energy rolling out, as she mentioned, over minimally the next 6 months, which lines up coincidentally or not so much so with the eclipses that we have throughout the year. So I am so curious to see what happens during these energetic periods, how those transmissions are received, how they affect world events and our own energy. And I guess we can expect a lot of shifting and opening up. So I would love it if you would let me know wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast, if you could give us a follow, I would really appreciate that. And then there's often a place to leave comments as well. So what do you think about this energy? Are you surprised? Does this, for me, it was really resonating all the way through with different information I've received, different research I've done based on that information. A lot of times, just like Nancy described, I'll go into a meditation to see what I can receive first, and then I will research after. I don't like to research first because then I feel like my mind is predisposed. So I think it's so cool that Nancy does it that way too. And I also love that we kind of have some of the same information, which is just always really powerful and validating, I think, for all of us. So get ready for the blue light transmissions and Nancy's events. And I am so excited to see you next week here inside Spirit Speakeasy. Big hugs. Bye for now.